Hi, I'm Chris, and I want to say thanks for downloading this video. Over the next 12 episodes, I'll be doing a complete walkthrough of the first mission of the GMT game Fields of Fire. Fields of Fire is a unique solitaire war game, and I think you'll find that once you get the rules down, it's a lot of fun to play. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about in setup is how we organize our company. So what I've got here is we're setting up for Mission 1, the Normandy campaign. And what I've done here is I've gone ahead and attached my 60mm mortar section, my 50 caliber heavy machine gun, as well as this mission's artillery forward observer to the command section. So all of those units are going to be commandable by any of those three commanders, the company HQ, the company XO, or the company first sergeant. To each of the platoons, I've attached a bazooka, so that each of the squads or each of the platoons has some little bit of their own punch there. And then to first and second platoons, I've attached the 30 caliber machine guns. My intent with this mission is to go ahead and use the first and second platoons as kind of my primary thrust, and then I'll use third platoon to follow up and act as reinforcements as necessary. So that's why I went ahead and gave the 50 or the 30 cals to the first and second platoons. Okay, now that we have an idea of how we're organizing the company, it's time to go ahead and fill out our company roster. So this is really a useful tool during the course of the game, and a couple of things we need to put on it right at the start. We need to go ahead and identify the experience level of all of the units involved, because the experience level controls their success or their capabilities when it comes to attempting different types of orders. So in the first mission, it's really pretty straightforward. All of the leaders are green with the exception of the first sergeant, who is line. Everyone else in the mission is line. So I've gone ahead and just put a G in for the HQs and the XO, and then L for everything else to indicate the line level. I've also gone ahead and filled in which teams are attached to each of the platoons. So I've got first weapons and first weapons, machine gun and bazooka here. And I've gone ahead and indicated the number of shots they've got to fire. And I've done that same thing with second weapons. And then finally down on third platoon, I've given them the third weapons bazooka as well. I've identified that I've got the 50 caliber machine gun and it's 6 shots, and I've got the 160 mortar section. Instead of splitting it up to the 2, 3, and 4 teams, I am using the entire section here, and I've got 4 rounds there. The advantage of the section over the teams is that I get the ability to do indirect lay with that mortar as opposed to just direct lay, which is all you get with the teams. I've also gone ahead and, according to the mission instructions, filled out my fire support. I've got support coming from the 15th Field Artillery Battalion in the form of 4 shots of high explosive and 1 shot of white phosphorus, Whiskey Pete. And I've gone ahead and filled in the draws for all of that. In this case, the artillery forward observer will get 2 draws when he goes to try to call for fire. The CO, if he attempts to call for fire, only gets 1 draw for that. And again, I've indicated the 4 shots and the 1 shot for that. On the back side, I've gone ahead and indicated the attached artillery forward observer, and again, his line experience. And then I've also gone and identified what we're going to do with our pyro signals. Pyrotechnics are kind of cool in Fields of Fire because it allows you to basically assign commands to different pyrotechnic signals. And what this allows you to do basically is to go ahead and send orders to units without having to actually have normal communication, whether that's visual verbal communication or radio-based communication. If a unit sees a pyrotechnic signal that has a pre-configured order attached to it, it will go ahead and attempt that order. So in this case, I've got my red smoke and red star parachutes, both keyed, and red star cluster to cease fire. I've got yellow smoke and purple smoke attached to seek cover. I've got the green smoke and the green star cluster set to shift fire, and I've gone ahead and attached the advanced to phase line 1 order for the green star parachute. And we'll see how I plan on using that when we actually get the map built out. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and populate the command display. So this is where we keep track of all the different assets that are attached to each of the different headquarters units. It's also where we'll keep track of commands once the game starts going. Basically, in this mission, all of the HQ units, all 3 of the CO leaders, as well as all 3 of the platoon leaders, are all going to get a tactical field phone. I'm going to use telephones for this mission. You do have a choice between using phones or radios, and so far I've had success with using the phone, so I'm sticking with those. The headquarters unit is also going to get a field phone that's going to attach him back to the battalion command. That's how he's going to get his self-activated each turn. So that's a requirement that he have communication back to the staging area. And then just to make it simple and not have an extra counter cluttering up the map, I've gone ahead and put the artillery field officer's radio with the command HQ. Technically that does move with the artillery forward observer. If he were ever to be injured and drop his radio, that would have to go on the map at that point. I've gone ahead and attached, continuing with communications, I've given first and second platoons 3 chits for wire, and third platoon has 2 chits for the total of 8. As they leave map cards, they'll need to drop phone wire in order to continue their communication and keep that intact. Finally, I've gone ahead and assigned the pyrotechnics. So I've assigned both a red and a green star parachute to the COHQ. I've attached some red, green, and yellow smoke and some plain smoke or high concentrate smoke and whiskey peat to 1st Platoon HQ. I did not key any orders to the high concentrate or whiskey peat. I plan to use those just for their combat value, not as a communications tool. To the 2nd Platoon, I've attached the red star cluster and the green star cluster, as well as a purple smoke and again some high concentrate and whiskey peat smoke. And to 3rd Platoon, which again I'm planning on just using as a reinforcement platoon, I have not attached any of those pyrotechnics. They'll have to do everything through their normal orders. And then last but not least, each of the platoons does get a rifle grenade. That's a one-shot, works basically just like the bazooka does. What's nice about that is it can actually be used by any squad within the platoon at the moment you choose to use it. So you don't need to assign that to an individual squad. You can use that for any squad in the platoon when it's appropriate to do so. But no platoon can have more than one of those. And then finally, and we'll get more into this as we start playing the game, we've got everything set up for our commands. Right now, of course, we start off with no commands anywhere. And that's the command display. Okay, now it's time to start setting up our map. And so to set up our map, we go ahead and shuffle our terrain deck. We'll make sure that's good and mixed up. And of course, I've already done that a few times off board as well. And we get all that shuffled together, and then we're ready to start dealing out the map. So the way we do that is we're first going to build our staging area. And in this mission, the map is a 4x3, so I've got 4 columns, 3 rows deep. And I'm just going to turn over each of those cards in turn. And I probably need to move these really close together to make the video somewhat sane. I'd probably leave a little more room than this if I were doing this just for my own sake. But to try to keep everything nice and tight in the video, I'm going to put these a little closer than I probably would otherwise. Okay, no hills are present. If there had been a hill anywhere in here, I would go ahead and next deal out a card to go on top of that hill to raise that up. But in this map, I don't have any hills to play with. All right, next thing we're going to do is start putting out our control markers. So I'm going to start by putting out the left and right boundaries. Remember, my units cannot move to the left of the left boundary or to the right of the right boundary, even if enemy units appear off map, and that is definitely a possibility in this game. I'm going to go ahead and assign my line of departure to the line between my staging area and the first row, and again my limit of advance at the end of the final row. Again, my units cannot move past the line of advance, although certainly the map can extend and potentially there'd be enemy units out there that I'd have to deal with. I'm going to go ahead and set up my contact and visibility markers as well. This mission is defined as having daylight, and of course we start the mission with no contact in place. Finally, I am going to place a phase line marker. We talked earlier about the fact that I'm going to have a command that's keyed to one of the pyro signals that's going to say advance to the phase line. Basically what that would do is any units that are still sitting in my staging area would go ahead and move forward into row 1. But no units past that would move forward because all of the other units would already be at or beyond the phase line. So I don't need to worry about them. Now finally, the fun part of setting up the map, which is figuring out what my objectives are going to be. In this mission, My objectives are pretty straightforward. I need to clear the first 2 rows of all enemies, period. So all potential contacts, any enemy troops that show up, I have to clear both of the first 2 rows. I also have to define primary and secondary objectives up here in row 3. And I get to choose which of those cards I'm going to set up to be those objectives. And again, the mission criteria is that I clear those cards, clear and secure them. So I get to choose what those are, and a good choice there is to choose cards that are going to be defensible. And so as I look at those 4 cards up there, the 2 that look like they're probably going to be the most defensible are going to be the 2 farms. And the reason for that is they got a decent card draw for the cover. I can draw 3 cards for cover on each of those. And in the Normandy campaigns, when you draw for cover on one of the urban cards, there's a 60% chance of that cover being a strong building. And if it's a strong building, then that's going to be just fantastic cover. So I definitely want to try to get on those. So I'm going to go ahead and identify this is objective 1 and this is objective 2. Finally, I need to choose an attack position. The attack position has to be in the adjacent to at least one of the 2 objectives. One of the things I like about this position, for example, on the 2 farms, is the visibility that's possible here from this multi-story village card. So I'm going to have the potential to draw a multi-story cover marker. Right now, cover visibility or line of sight from row 1 does not extend anywhere to row 3. Every one of these cards blocks line of sight from row 1 into row 3. But if I can get up onto that second story of that village, that's going to give me line of sight all the way to this farm and all the way to this farm. That's going to be a great place for me to put up my 50 cal or my artillery observer to start bringing in fire to help knock those, anybody that shows up in those out, pretty strongly. That's going to allow me to bring a lot of firepower to bear there. So the attack position, I'm going to go ahead and place I'm going to split the difference here. I'm going to go and put that in the orchard here. And my only thinking there is that, again, it allows me to have good cover from the village and, frankly, from lots of other units or lots of other cards. And it just feels like a pretty decent position to put that. So I'm going to go and place the attack position there. Finally, finish this off. I just need to place my potential contact markers in this mission. All of row 1 gets PCCs. All of row 2 gets PCAs. That seems to be a common error that I see on the Board Game Geek every now and then, is people wanting to do ABC, but on this first mission it's actually CAB. And finally, the last row of cards gets potential contact markers B. Now I'm going to go ahead and place my units in the staging area. And again, my goal here is to use 1st and 2nd platoons as kind of my primary thrust, and I'm going to try to go kind of up that right side to be able to get up into that farm. I'm going to go ahead and place these in order: 1st platoon, 2nd platoon, and 3rd platoon. And then all of my command section units, I'm just going to drop onto this 2nd card here. And the reason I'm going to put those on this card is it gives me really kind of the most flexibility here, because I can move from this card diagonally into the village or into this hedgerow if I need to, and of course straight ahead. So it just kind of gives the commanding unit section kind of some options on where to go. I'm really going to want to get that artillery observer up into that 2nd story of that village if I can, just because that's going to give me just a lot of horsepower to start blasting away at those enemy units down there. And with that, we've pretty much finished the setup of the game, and we're ready to start turn 1.